Go ahead and get started. I had asked Dan to join us today. He's a prolific writer, both in baseball and in travel. And I think, Dan, something like 40 books I think you've written or read.
Yes,
But
two more coming.
yeah, and so I think one of the ones we were going to talk to today was your latest Baseball's Memorable Misses, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you want to just dive in, get started.
Okay, well, first of all, here's the book. And the idea for this book was all the things that never happened in baseball that most people assume did happen. For example, Willie Mays never won an RBI title, so 0 RBI titles for Willie Mays. Stan Musial hit 475 home runs, but 0 times did he lead the National League. The Seattle Mariners, 0 pennants. They're the only team that has never won a pennant. And of course, everybody knows Nolan Ryan, 5,000 strikeouts, 7 no-hitters, but 0 Cy Youngs. It's just amazing to me how many of these things are out there. Greg Maddux, 0 years in which he won more than 20 games. He won 20 a couple of times, but he never won more than that. A very consistent guy. Let's not forget 0 All-Star appearances by Kirk Gibson. Even the year he won the MVP award, he was not an All-Star that year or any year. 0 World Series games for Ernie Banks, for a whole bunch of guys. You'd be surprised at some of the guys who never made the World Series. Ken Griffey Jr. is another one. 0 Grand Slams for Pete Alonso the year he hit 53 as a rookie. None of them came with the bases loaded. And 0 games for Jack Norworth before he wrote Take Me Out to the Ball Game in 1908. What inspired him to write that? He couldn't have seen baseball on TV, could not have even heard it on the radio at that time. But something made him write that, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, which could be the most popular baseball song ever written. So it's just amazing how many of these things that you think happened never did. Hank Aaron, I'm doing a book on Hank Aaron now. There are a bunch of Hank Aaron zeros. For example, 0 times Hank Aaron hit for the cycle. 0 times Hank Aaron hit 4 home runs in a game. 0 triple crowns for Hank Aaron. All these things go into a book like Baseball's Memorable Misses. And the original title of this book was Baseball Zeros. But the marketing department at Skyhorse Publishing, a bunch of 30-year-olds, decided they knew more than the author, and they thought zeros was going to be too negative. So they zeroed it out. And the word zeros is there, but it's in the subtitle. Take a good look. It's in the subtitle, but it's not in the main title. And I like short and sweet titles. So this happens. What can you do when the publisher always has the last word on a title, not the author?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it was a lot of fun putting the book together, and things constantly changed. At the time I was writing the book, it was 0 World Series titles for Dusty Baker as a manager. Well, that changed after I finished writing it. So you got to be careful what you write because there's an element of timeliness to it. And these books are generally due in the middle of July or a little bit later than that, the preceding year before it's published.
So had this been information you were collecting for a long time, or how did you come about this particular theme?
That's a very good question. I only follow baseball. I have no interest in any other sport. I'm a baseball guy 12 months a year. I've never even watched a Super Bowl, or a Stanley Cup game or anything like that, or NCAA final. Never seen any of those things, but baseball all the time. And I collect scrapbooks. I collect trivia. I highlight things. I read the newspaper with a highlighter every day, several newspapers. I miss the old sporting news. I love the old sporting news.
Yeah.
But I read online. I read The Athletic. I read MLB.com, all that stuff I read every day and save things that are really weird. And if you read Jason Stark's column in The Athletic, he and I think the same way. We love oddities and ironies. I'm even teaching a course at Bergen Community College here in northern New Jersey, and it's called Baseball Oddities and Ironies.
Can you take that class online?
Yeah, can you take that class online?
I wish I could give it online. Another Hank Aaron interesting one is he ruined the end of Harvey Haddock's perfect game. You might recall what happened. Haddock pitched 12 perfect innings. This was May 26, 1959. In the bottom of the 13th, Felix Mantilla was safe on an error by Don Hoke. That was the first base runner for the Braves. The score was still 0-0. Then Eddie Matthews batting second. Now get this, bunted Mantilla to second. How many times do you see anybody bunt today, especially a slugger like Eddie Matthews? But he bunted Mantilla to second. That brought up Hank Aaron. But what do you do with Hank Aaron? You walk him in that situation, obviously, which they did. So that put runners on first and second with one out and brought up Joe Adcock. And he hit the ball over the fence. So you would think the score was 3-0, but actually it wasn't, because Aaron, once he got to second and saw the ball disappear over the fence, got excited and went directly to the Braves dugout. Meanwhile, Adcock, with his head down in his home run trot, made it to second, but the minute he passed where Aaron had vacated, he was called out for passing a base runner. And so the only run of the game that counted was Mantilla's. 1-0.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are a lot of, 1-0 games always have some oddball angle to it. Look at the game that Warren Spahn and Juan Marichal pitched in 1963. 1-0, 16 innings, won by a Willie Mays home run in the bottom of the 16th inning. Both pitchers went all the way and threw over 200 pitches. Now, Spahn and Marichal were both at the 1999 All-Star game where they unveiled the team of the century. They were both on the team of the century, and they started to talk about that game. And Marichal said, Alvin Dark was my manager, and in the 9th inning, he told me he was going to pinch hit for me the next time I came up. And I said, I'm not going out as long as that old man is out there. And Spahn said, Bobby Bragan was my manager, and he told me he was going to take me out too. And Spahn said to him, I'm not going out as long as that young guy is out there. So they both pitched the whole game. Never happened again. Never happened again. Especially with that Manfred man, that stupid rule with the extra inning base runners, which I think is the worst rule in the history of baseball.
So how old was Spahn then? Was 40 what?
Spahn was like 42, 43 at that time. And he was 20 years older than Marichal.
Right.
Big kicks, big
Yeah.
leg kicks, both of them.
That's right.
Yeah, another zero thing, by the way. Marichal gets a big fat zero number of Cy Young awards he got in his career. Never got a vote because in the old system, the way they voted, it was always Koufax, Drysdale, Gibson. Marichal never got a vote for Cy Young.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
And his best years were always the same as Sandy Koufax's best years, and Sandy Koufax's best year was always that much better.
Yeah.
Telling,
Go ahead.
I remember as a kid looking at the book and they give you a history of no-hitter games.
Right.
But then there was also a big listing of one-hit games. Ask him if he remembers that.
Did you hear
I
that?
love Bob Feller's quote on one hitters. He said, pitching a one hitter is great, but it's like being the second man on the moon.
Well, second man on the moon's still alive though.
That's right, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And
That's
just
true.
got remarried, so he's doing something right.
Yeah.
And speaking of the moon, that reminds me of a Gaylord Perry story. You guys probably know this one.
Yeah.
But in 1962, Alvin Dark, managing the Giants, said to Gaylord Perry, "You're such a lousy hitter. The day you hit a home run will be the day man walks on the moon." So 7 years later, on July 20th, 1969, man walked on the moon, and not only did Gaylord Perry hit the first of his 8 career home runs, but he and his brother Jim won 3 games that day. Jim won 2. He was a reliever then.
You know, Rich, tell him back in '64, I guess. I'm not sure the year, but the Mets were involved in a real long game.
You remember a game the Mets played? It was a lengthy.
In the 60s.
Yeah, I think it was 63, and I believe Gaylord Perry pitched 10 scoreless innings in relief and became a starting pitcher after that.
Yeah, that's the stupidest rule ever. Is goes.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's my favorite stupid statistics is, lead off, walk off, 2-run home runs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I call it the Manfred Man after the music group.
Yeah.
because Bob Manfred was the guy I came in under.
Telling
Wouldn't have
us
worked with Bud
total
Selig.
velocity and all this
Yeah.
crap.
Right.
See what he says about that.
So Rick is asking, what's your impression of all the latest emphasis on launch angle, exit velocity and all
Spin
that,
rates.
spin
Yeah,
rates?
I don't pay any attention to exit angles, launch velocity. I just want to know who hit a home run, who won the game. You know, that's what I'm interested in. But the new rules, I mean, the bases look like pizza boxes. If they had a pizza in it, it'll be worth it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous.
I saw where Baseball Reference now has a page showing the effect of the new rules, like stolen bases, average times of games. And so they show by month what the statistics are, and then they compare it to previous years, which is which is summed up. And it's
They were making a lot of this on the game the other day. The size of the base is contributing to more stolen bases. And I said,
Yeah.
it's the fact that you can't throw over
right.
anymore, or you've got your limit, and so he knows he's got a good break on that.
They're closer together now because they're bigger.
Yeah.
Well, and originally when they said the base was going to be bigger, I thought they were going back to the old idea of saying, well, we'll have part of it on the first base side, part of it in fair territory, part of it where the base runner's alley is to avoid that. But no, they put them just all over the place. I thought, well, that was stupid.
Yeah.
Rick Henderson would have a field day today, huh?
Oh,
With that.
So it's like,
I think they interviewed Ricky Henderson about that, asked him how many bases he thinks he would steal right now.
Well, I saw one statistic said they predicted Michael Harris, Ronald Acuna would steal 68 bases this year.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
But it's 3 inches. I think it's more that the pitcher, the pitcher's not going to throw.
Right.
Than it is the 3 inches.
yeah, here, Rich, tell him this. My friend in Chicago, I believe right close to opening day, but opening day for the Cubs, cold as it was, the Brewers are the opponent. They got a dome. What?
Yeah, right.
What is this stupidity?
Yeah,
That's
right.
that is opinion.
I'm mentioning the Cubs. How about Cody Bellinger? He was waving his hat because the Dodger fans remembered him. They're cheering him, and he got a strike called against him.
Yeah.
What?
Cody Bellinger, with the they have to so much time the batter has to get into the batter's box. Well, he was waving his hat to the old Dodgers fans, and they called a strike on him for delaying the game. Yeah. Anyway.
And now sunscreen is a banned substance because you can combine it with rosin,
Right.
put it on the pitcher's hand.
Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed Max didn't fight too much.
Well, he knows he's going to get back in time to pitch one of those games against the Braves. That's what he cares about.
All right. Any more stories you got for us, or?
Tons. Where do I start?
Ah,
I think we got a few more minutes if you want to.
and books on Amazon.
Yeah. Where can the
Yes.
book be?
Yes, you can find our books on Amazon. You can Google my name, which you can see on the screen there. It's Dan is the first name. Last name I have trouble spelling too, but my books are on Amazon. And I think you'll enjoy this book, Baseball's Memorable Misses, because it's a tongue-in-cheek book. In fact, Ronnie Joyner, the late Ronnie Joyner, unfortunately, but he was my cartoonist. He let me use all his cartoons without all the writing in them. And so I used a whole bunch of his cartoons in the book. It was a fun book to write. It really was.
Nice.
So it sounds like it'd be a fun.
It's the kind of thing you probably can pick up, read a few pages, and then come back later and.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's both a bathroom book and a coffee table book.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Put it on top of the toilet or put it on your coffee table.
There you go.
If you have a studio apartment that might be in the same room.
Oh, nice.
Oh, great. Well,
Is the illustrator style anything like Amity Wallflavors?
It's more like Amity. Remember the old cartoonist Amity from the Sporting News? He used to do the clevers. His style is more like that. Really good stuff. Ronnie Joyner to me is the best baseball cartoonist I've ever seen.
I've seen a lot of his work. Pretty good.
Yeah. He's still in Sports Collectors Digest every issue.
Yeah, I noticed that.
He did a book of his own cartoons too.
Yeah, Ronnie Joyner, the artist that he's referring to, his cartoons still show up in this Sport Collector Digest monthly magazine.
When he doesn't play his.
Yes,
bass.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
All right. If you didn't have anything else, I think we'll release you. And I mean, you're welcome to stay if you want, but
No, we'll see him in Chicago.
yeah.
Some
So are you going to be in Chicago?
I wish. I'm going to the All-Star game in Seattle. I can't do both.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So we'll have to get on Amazon and look for that book then. Huh?
That's it.
Yeah, I would like to be at SABR, but next year I'll be there and I'll sign my Hank Aaron book for you guys. Got a new Hank Aaron book coming out.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks again, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice weekend.
Sure, you too.
Thank you.
Looks like.
Did y'all watch the Reggie Jackson thing that has a bunch of Hank Aaron in it?
No,
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
It's on, I think it's on, is it on Amazon?
Yeah, it was on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Amazon Prime did a really.
They made me want to have a Reggie bar.
A what?
Commercial for it, the promo for it, I wanted a Reggie bar.
It's really good.
Candy bar. Exactly.
It's really good.
Was it?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of your clips of Hank Aaron, just
I
the
remember the
the
commercial.
way they tell the story of the angle that they take with Reggie and talking and the way they kind of make it about baseball, but also kind of about being a black man in the '70s. It's really good.
Well, you know, you look at that picture, you've probably seen it. Hank Aaron would have been high school age, getting ready to report for baseball.
Yeah.
He looks like he didn't have 2 cents to his name,
Yeah.
hadn't had his clothes cleaned or
Right.
pressed, and, you know, just typical poor black guy.
Yeah.
You know, and
It
look
was
what he, look what he,
1952 or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
but look what he became.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It just. Fabulous.
Hi, Meryl. We didn't get a chance to say hello to you. Thanks for joining. We've got about 5 people here in the room.
Racist man.
So if you want to chime in, please feel free to speak up.
He wasn't allowed to enjoy that, and that is real, that's a felony.
Pardon
me? Meryl Streep.
Yeah, he's muted right.
Well,
How does that go?
yeah,
I'm getting ready to cut the cord. Wednesday.
yeah.
Or,
Talks out of my house.
oh, really?
But I got AT&T for the internet coming in.
Okay.
What is the Amazon gonna do? It's gonna be an app up on.
Like
I'm getting
a Roku or a Fire Stick or
a
something.
stick. I'm getting
Yeah.
2 sticks for each
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah, you'll need like a bunch of different, I think they call it
They could have
apps,
said, all right,
like on the
everybody
TV.
gather
when you
around,
turn
we'll
the
talk,
TV,
everybody will
you know, if you wanna go to Netflix, HBO, and then you kind of click on whatever one that you have on there. And if you have Amazon, then you can,
I know, but.
You're gonna have to subscribe. You're gonna have to. subscribe.
$179 a year, I think.
yeah, I think that's like, yeah, that includes like all the stuff that gets delivered to your house and all that.
Yeah, but when do you get on the TV?
It's a shitload of different shows and,
It's worth.
I mean, that's a hard question to answer for you.
What's that?
There's Hulu, there's all these different things and they all offer.
It's, look, that's the first one I got. You know, of course, during the pandemic, I bought everything off Amazon, so I could guess it. But, you know, like in terms of movies that you want to watch, ball games that you want to watch, stuff like that, Amazon will do almost anything.
I told this tech guy is gonna come. Hopefully Wednesday when AT&T puts in a modem and a router. This tech guy, he's gonna show me how to get it, I guess.
You getting fiber?
Yeah.
Okay. If you
So,
get regular AT&T, be prepared to be disappointed. But fiber optics, they say it works.
yeah, but I mean,
If you're in that area, it works pretty
I
good.
need the fiber to come in from my computer. Yeah, and then
Yeah, well, I mean,
stream to the TV.
as long as you got the fiber optic system, not just the old. Not every area of town gets the fiber optics. That's the thing. As long as you got that, you'll be in good shape.
Well, I'm fed up to hell with Cox.
Well, you know, you and what, 3.2 million people?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, what a bad operation. Well, look how they had running it for years. Ray Nagin. Ran against the police chief. I told people Nagin was nothing but a puppet,
It was a bean town.
asshole, and everything else.
Well.
And he proved to be a god. I mean, a
Well,
thief.
yeah, it's gonna be like the The one we got coming next, Helena Moreno's gonna be your next mayor in New Orleans. Okay? And she does not like the idea of having a monopoly for cable. She says, look, you watch your TV and you hear all these commercials for Spectrum. Well, you can't get Spectrum in New Orleans because you got Cox. You say, well, if you wanna do that, you can get a dish TV. Well, that's not the same thing. So she wants to open it up to more stuff.
Yeah, but if she pisses off a lot of people.
Well, she's in politics. It's her job.
Well, what about the black fellow married to Jerusalem's sister? Morel.
JP, well, yeah, but
He's gonna allow her to become mayor.
yeah. He couldn't raise that much money. Helena Moreno's independently wealthy. Okay. Her family's wealthy. She's,
All right, also, she's quite a bitch.
Tell us how you really feel. All right, so some of y'all know that for the past few years, I've provided an update of players that
Mhm.
played high school in New Orleans that went on to college or professional ranks. And so my database has about over 2,000 players going back to 1900s that have that. So what I do is I look at the current colleges, current year, 2023, and find all the players that play local baseball, high school baseball. And
Annually or?
yeah, I go through media guide, the online media guides and just find players. And so this year I found 172. It's probably some I missed, I'm sure, because they crop up later. So, and they came from 39 different high schools and they played at 49 different colleges. And so, and these are just some breakdowns I've tried to provide. In this case, the college level attended, obviously you would hope Division I would be more, but not by much over really the junior college, community college.
That's the play, that's what you go to for like 2 years if you're trying to.
Correct, right, yeah, that's like most of the 2-year schools.
so how do you count a guy like Brennan Lambert who started at Delgado and now is at Tulane?
I only do the current year, so I look at it from 2023 standpoint. Yeah.
You got another one?
Yes.
Since my son is.
Yep.
In this number.
So
The Saints went marching in.
What's
Okay.
that?
Your son is in this number.
Yeah, he played at Loyola.
yeah,
So the Saints went marching in.
so that was one breakdown I did. Another one was where did they, what high?
Richard, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Is this the 2023 people or is this?
Yeah,
Oh,
2023,
okay.
yeah,
It
it's
said
only,
right there.
it's only 20, yeah.
Just
20.
those numbers,
Yeah.
not the 21.
No, correct,
Okay.
right. On the next one, I looked at where were the players coming from, or what high schools were they playing in by region? And you can see East Bank, you might expect there. Actually, the North Shore is growing. It's been, if you track it over years, it's really come on pretty strong.
Where are they coming from? Do you know, like, do you have like East Bank? Do you have like parishes or anything? Do you know?
Well, I got schools. I got Rummel, Jesuit, Holy
Okay.
Cross, Riverdale, or
You got St. Paul?
Desterhand, yes, St. Paul.
Oh.
And actually, the West Bank is actually shrinking to almost nothing. I mean, Shaw used to produce a fair amount of players at the college level, and now they don't need any more. The river parishes are like Desterhand, Hahnville, South Lafourche, and St. Charles Catholic.
Dutchtown.
No, I don't have them in my list. I excluded them and Hammond and
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge, though. So it's mostly the ones that are that you think about that play in the New Orleans district, in the districts. So the next one was which colleges they're going to. Obviously, Delgado has been a machine for playing the local players, and that's where they
Joe
get.
Sherman
Yep,
and Rags.
and he's pretty successful at it too. So.
Do they give people money or why are they getting people to go there?
Well, number one, it's inexpensive.
Right.
And,
Number two, it's local.
well, it's local, but you also have, the guy who built that program was a guy named Rag Sherman, who came from Loyola. When Loyola stopped their varsity sports in 1970, He moved over to Delgado. 25
built that
years there,
program.
and his son Joe's 20. So they had their own stadium. The whole, I mean, so they had a great program. And it was affordable for
72, huh?
7. It was,
I thought Wally Pond pitched,
he did in 1970.
and that was it.
That was it. Look, it was me and the parents going to the baseball game. The kids took the L off their jerseys and played their schedule out because they knew they were going to see coaches from other universities going to come scout. The university honored their scholarship for the season. Okay, so Johnny Blanchard. Now he left Loyola and went to Northwestern and graduated from Northwestern, but he still considers himself a Loyola guy because he played for Red.
And did Poniff go to Miami?
He went straight to the pros, I think, didn't he, after Loyola?
Yeah, but he had to go someplace between
Was he in
Loyola
minor
and
league?
he had to go someplace else to
Yeah,
graduate.
he went to minors. Yeah, well, maybe he did, but
Yeah, he went someplace else to graduate. I'll ask him this.
yeah, he played in minors for a couple of years, I think.
So I'm,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
but that's probably why Delgado's more so
They
than,
still have their own stadium and stuff?
yeah, Kershaw,
Kershwin State,
Where is that? I'm just wondering where-
mid city.
Mid City.
You know where Morning Call is now?
Uh-huh.
You go back towards City Park and there's a big complex that you'd see on your left. That there's,
I used to meet there.
Like driving down City Park Avenue?
driving down City Park Avenue towards City Park, it's on your left before you get to Marconi.
You take a left, if you're coming from Metairie,
Yeah.
you take a left at Marconi. City Park Stadium's over here.
Yeah,
You take a left on Navarre. Navarre goes back to Canal Boulevard.
yeah.
And it's right in there.
Yeah, all that, there was old Andrew Higgins had a boat plant there. They just built this big new nursing building there on the corner,
WYES is on
on the bar.
Oh,
right past that. If you're coming from
It's all in that-
Marconi, from City Park Stadium,
yeah.
you go past WYES and you take a hard left past this little diamond on the corner
Yeah,
before you hit the Navarre Cafe before Canal Boulevard.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
take a left, go down a block, and there's the ballpark.
it's a nice old area.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. They actually played a few major league games there, right?
Yeah.
In 67,
60.
and,
Actually, when they came, to
Just cover the top.
they played some exhibition games there.
Aubrey, I believe.
I think that was they didn't know where Hank Aaron he hit the home run in the preseason was the next home run he hit was tied the record in the major leagues. One right before that was here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Delgado is a baseball factory, I would call it, because he just now a lot of these players, 33 players, all of them don't play, right? So a lot of them are on the team, but and some of them, when they don't play, they'll just enroll again the next year in redshirt and just to keep active. I think keep their chances of playing and getting
Oh, yeah.
Get to play
33,
somewhere
that's
else.
more than you'd have on the
yeah,
roster.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Derby can tell me that there were 2 prospects when my kid was playing. One of them came out of Jesuit, Lukinovich. This kid was all around, pitcher,
Yeah.
hitter,
I
slugger.
think he went to Ole Miss, I think.
Yeah, but then he disappeared.
Oh, yeah,
But the other kid was Ryan.
Adams,
Huh?
Ryan Adams.
No, that boy had dope trouble
yeah.
and he was
Right.
from Vanderbilt.
Right.
No, Ryan Eves.
Eves.
This kid was outstanding. Whatever, he fizzled out. What happened to
I think
him?
he actually got to the major leagues for a year with Minnesota Twins, I believe.
How you spell his name?
EAVES.
Man, when you looked at him, you knew he was major league material.
Well, yeah, but you think, look, Chad Suter hit a ball when he was playing for Tulane.
Ryan.
He hit a ball on Zephyr Stadium and almost hit the Harley Davidson
Didn't come up on.
over the canal,
Is that how you spell it?
okay? But he's a guy who could never make the transition from an aluminum bat to a wooden bat,
Like Eddie Furnace.
you know? Yeah, you know, as bad a guy as, Will Clark is an unfortunate personality. You know?
Yeah.
He can like you or love you, but
Oh, yeah.
you know, I mean, when Father Postel asked him at a reunion to take a picture for the Blue Jay
I
magazine,
heard
he said,
that.
not unless you pay me.
Right.
And he wasn't kidding. Now, as tragic a human being as he is, he also took Micah Owens under his wing and helped the kid make that transition to aluminum. And Micah Owens, if you remember, came in for 1 year from Georgia Tech. He came in for 1 year at Tulane. That was in 2005.
They
when
went to the World
Series.
Series, yeah.
He was pitching, and he got drafted as a pitcher by the Diamondbacks. He was used as a pinch hitter and hit 6 pinch hit home runs his rookie year.
Damn.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Will Clark helped him make that transition. So you look at him and say, on one hand, he's a complete turd in a punch bowl. On the other hand, he's walking on water. You
Well,
know?
wait a minute, this Owens, he played against the Zephyrs, huh? He wasn't with the Zephyrs,
No.
but he came in.
He came in
He
a couple of
may
times.
have played minor
My
league.
son told me, maybe my son worked for the Zephyrs in the clubhouse. And he said he brought people to the airport and put
Right.
$20 on him or something.
Yeah.
He said that Michael Owens was one of the greatest
Oh,
guys.
He's fabulous. He got beamed
Oh,
when he
geez.
was playing for Cincinnati. Because he went from Diamondbacks to the Reds, when they were in Atlanta, and his family's from outside of Atlanta. And he never made it back.
Man,
It's
I never understand.
talented guy.
He would have been a two-way player like Otani if they had let him play, you know.
Absolutely.
This should be the rule of high school and college. I'm looking at you, you're the pitcher. Why don't you have this thing here?
I know.
You know, I mean, you want to be a pro? Here's what I never understood. I briefly see collegiate hockey, okay? Notre Dame, Minnesota, Maine.
Right.
Boston College, they all like this, right? You get to the pros, and it's a clear thing right here. Oh, this
Oh,
is
this is
open
exposed.
for pucks and sticks. Why can't you have a complete, you ever
Yeah.
notice that?
No, I don't watch hockey.
Well, I mean, I've seen it, and I said.
Unless it's the
I'm
Olympics.
aware of what you're talking. I played roller hockey as a kid and we had to have the whole thing
But
going.
as a kid, you gotta have all that.
I mean, but the collegians have it all like this.
I know.
But same principle, why aren't the collegians have this right
Yeah.
here?
I mean, specifically with that thing for the helmets, I don't know why everybody doesn't have that. I couldn't imagine going up there without that, you know?
No matter what level.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll be 40 this year. A couple years ago, I made a rule for myself. I am never getting in the box with someone throwing overhand the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I love baseball. I love to
Yeah.
play baseball, but like my days of getting in the box for someone
Yeah.
throwing, trying to strike me out, is completely done. Like no one, you can't be trusted.
I was older than you, time there's a batting cage.
Yeah, that would be, now this is fun.
It's coming at the same
Yeah.
little spot all the time. You're coming at 3 years, not coming at.
That's fly balls all day long, but. Man, I meant to tell you all this at the last one. A buddy of mine, he's a guitar player and a sound man. He has this awesome like late 80s Bronco. And he was working sound at a gig I did last September. And he was like, "Oh, you're a baseball fan?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, this is Will Clark's truck." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is the truck Will Clark bought with his signing bonus." And he had like he had the paperwork
Yeah.
in it, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
he sent me the articles, and like there's this article from Jerry Lane Chevrolet, which like Will Clark shaking Jerry Lane's hand.
Who's a ball player too.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
It's 86, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it says 86, yeah, 86 Blazer. There you go, 86.
So when did he still have it?
My buddy has it now, but like he just bought it, like coincidence, and like, you know, it's just the story of whose car this was has managed to go
Trickle
all
down.
the way down
What year did your friend buy it?
last year.
Holy cow.
Oh, he's still running. It still runs great.
Oh, yeah, I'd keep that baby going.
Yeah, but he still had all the documents and stuff were all in the car, and he sent me pictures of, well, I can't get it to pull up. Yeah, he sent me pictures of that's like the newspaper article from the paper. If you zoom in on it, you can see really young Will Clark and Jerry Lane shaking hands.
Wow.
I thought that was super cool. I was like, dude, I am the only guy you know
Yeah.
that would care. I love it.
Cherry Lane Chevrolet.
I couldn't tell you.
I was 3 years old, I think Baton Rouge too. Eric Lang
That's good news.
was a catcher for Tulane. That's whose family it is.
Ask
I'm
him.
sorry, Richard.
That's all right. That's okay.
We stopped your presentation.
Conversation.
Hey, buddy, what'd you find out about Eve?
Minor league.
Minor
He was in
leagues.
the minor leagues of the Twins, not the major league.
Okay, he's still there?
No, that's been 10 years ago more.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you hadn't seen him, you'd say this guy, speaking of a talent like that, just one more digression here. About the best player in college. And they say the Pirates have first choice. But they don't want to sign him because he's going to demand more money. They want to draft a high school kid.
Yeah.
This kid is unreal.
One from LSU.
Dylan Cruz.
Yeah.
But could he go straight up or does he need seasoning?
He could.
Cruz is the hitter, right?
Nobody goes
You
straight
gotta
out.
get seasoning. You gotta get seasoning.
Nobody goes, even like Adley Rushman.
Pitcher,
Look
the
how
only
good
one.
he is now
Go right
and stuff. They all gotta go. Get a little.
But it's not as long. It's not as long as when they sign out of high school with 18. He's 18-year-old.
I know, but can you put Cruz right into AA? Or
He could, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think he could make double
Well,
A
he-
by the
he
end of his first
probably-
year.
He
But he's
probably
good and
won't
stuff.
even go to low A or A. He'll
Right.
probably start at double A.
Oh, man, him and the guy behind him, this Tommy Tank.
Yeah.
Boy, you ought to see
Guys.
him, and he just slams the ball
Right,
so
yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to go, coming up Friday? Looking for a fourth person for the Tiger game.
To my next slide.
I'd love to.
All right, let me go
Yeah.
get through this. All right, so the next school is Nunes Community College. They just started a program about 4 years ago. And Chalmette. Thank you, Lauren. And in fact, they are one of 3 programs that have started recently. Xavier now has a team, and Dillard started this year as a baseball team. Dillard never had a baseball team till this year. Xavier last year was in 1960 that they had a baseball team. So what's happening
Is
is,
it a year or 2 years now
what's that?
that they started their program, or is it this?
Xavier was last year,
Last year.
Dillard was this year. So what's happening is that's where a lot of these kids now that can't make it at LSU or Vanderbilt or even Southeastern are going to these smaller junior colleges. And it's a way to continue playing.
So the junior college, that's the thing you said is a 2-year program?
Yeah.
So after that, do you then, so I know you can enter the regular draft,
Right.
but can you also try to go to like a bigger college?
Transfer, yeah. I mean,
Most of them do.
Delgado sends quite a few players to major.
So
Major
that,
colleges.
the point is essentially kind of like you couldn't get into a school, but you're gonna play for 2 years and then try again?
Yeah.
Joe Bear.
And look, there's
Yeah, Braden Joubert from
Oh.
the Tigers now started at 2-1. Yeah.
There's a lot of kids who look at it and say, you know, I'm not gonna pay $80,000
So got
to go to
Yeah, he started
Tulane
Delgado.
for 2 years to take my basic course requirements.
Right.
I'm
makes
gonna
sense.
go to community college. Most of those credits will transfer. So I can get my 2 years, my starter 2 years cheaper and then go on after that.
Yeah.
Makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Say, buddy, you see up there all the names? Delgado, Nunes, Millsaps.
Millsaps and Bellhaven. Mississippi now has grown like over the last couple of years, number of people, not hundreds, but it's with like 35 people now going to Mississippi colleges.
That's where Millsaps.
Millsaps and Bellhaven and Jackson.
Jackson. Here's the thing.
Both of these are private schools, right? Both of these are private schools, Millsaps and
Yeah, where you
Bellhaven.
from, buddy?
I grew up in St. Louis.
All right, well, Millsaps is in Jackson. 9 out of 10 women are beautiful in Mississippi.
I've heard, I'm not been.
And the 10th one goes to Millsaps. You ever heard that?
Don't tell you, my wife's stepmother was. Millsaps. So we don't want to say.
Millsaps.
Pretty old.
I think what's happened is the coach had probably found a couple of recruits pretty good, and he said, hey, let me go back and see how many more I can get.
You know, Dillon had football, I think, back in the 50s. They gave it up. Dillon.
All right, so the point here is you don't see LSU and you don't see Tulane and you don't see UNO on this list. So the big colleges are not taking local players too much anymore.
So like all the people that you know are from other places.
Most of them are, yeah.
Tulane's got like maybe one.
I think it's like three or four, and I think LSU maybe has 3 or 4 that don't play much, but except for Joe Bear, but
Are there some guys on these other teams that could play on these other teams, or they're not good enough?
I don't think it could. I mean, years ago, Tulane and UNO had predominantly
Yeah,
local players. I mean,
look,
that-
there's guys on Tulane's team that shouldn't be playing Division I ball.
Yeah. That's probably true.
Pitching, you think? Both. Well, anyway, this Jobert was at Delgado, and man, let me tell you, he is a good hitter.
All right, so then where did the kids come from? What high schools? Holy Cross has been for the last few years has actually produced the most. Like to see North Shore is come on pretty strong.
What are they doing at Holy Cross program?
I don't know.
You know, they let Andy Canizero.
They let him
and
go,
they
I
said,
think.
well, we want to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they got a good coach, Derby.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, but
Canizero was.
Canizero left.
Yeah, but he was fooling around with women, and
No, that was when he was at Mississippi
nobody
State.
did it again.
No, he didn't.
That's what I heard.
I know, and it ain't true, because I just saw him. I just saw him a week ago.
He pissed somebody off.
Yeah. And then you can see, the Jesuits, St. Aug is actually surprising on this list. They are not typically known for their baseball program.
I know, but they beat Holy Cross.
Did they?
Well, it comes down to a deciding game today.
Yeah. A school that's missing off here is Destrehan used to produce a lot of college players. Now it's
Eric, too.
minimal. Yeah. All right, let's see what else. So then this is just by year when they started. So this year there were 54 new players that started. Most of them were freshmen, I think. Some of them may have been transfers that started the year. And private versus public, it's been about this kind of even almost for quite a while now. And then the last thing I had
Yeah,
was
you go back far enough.
Yeah.
Because you'd have S.J. Peters would just like
right,
slam the whole total.
exactly.
There are no,
Porche and Warren Easton, those.
you're talking, there are no public high schools in the city of New Orleans on there.
On the list.
And you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah, that's
out
right.
there.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let me think. Well, Hanville is public.
There's only a couple of them
But is Honville in New Orleans?
Oh,
St.
well, I
Charles.
mean, I count them from the New Orleans area.
It's not in the city.
It's not in the city,
No.
correct? That's correct. Yeah,
No, it's up the river.
so. All right,
So
then
for the purposes of what I was getting.
yeah,
at,
you're
it's
right.
the
Yeah,
suburbs.
your point,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
And then-
how it goes across the
that.
country.
The last thing was what states are they playing in? Obviously, you would expect Louisiana to be the
Close by.
highest. Mississippi, like I said, has been growing recently. Few from Alabama, few from Texas, and anyway, just what else in let's see. There are not very many players that are coming out of this pool that are getting drafted. Colin Burns from Tulane, I think, may be one of the last ones that's been 2 years ago now.
When you look at,
So you don't find many players from here anymore. Used to be, this was a factory for,
you go to Tulane games and.
Professional.
Years ago.
yeah.
We went to one the other day, and there's 6 scouts out there, and not on one of them looking at the Tulane. They were all looking at kids from Memphis.
Right.
Campbell.
What else? Southeastern is probably the largest, if you consider major college that's got a fair number of kids that are going there. So, all right, that was all I had here. So on that link on this page, first page, if you go to that link, got the entire list of 2,000 players in a spreadsheet type format.
Ted Benning, this one?
Yeah. There's a link there that has
I got a brief piece on one of the toughest pitching dynasties I've ever seen. Now it's minor league. It was the Fort Worth Panthers out of the Texas League. But the Texas League and the Southern Association used to play a postseason game called a series called the Dixie Series. And it was the third oldest postseason after the World Series and the Junior World Series. But there was, out of that group, from 1920 to 1925, the Fort Worth Panthers had a series of pitchers that they won the Texas League pennant 6 years in a row, and they won 5 out of 6 Dixie series. They regularly won over 100 games every season.
How can the majors not go rate them?
Well, they would, okay, the Fort Worth Panthers for a long period of time were affiliated with, and at this point in time, they were affiliated with the Detroit Tigers. But they're
In the 20s?
in the 20s. Affiliated, not a
Yeah.
farm system, but just, you know.
They had connections.
Yeah, their head guy is a guy named Joe Pate, Pate, who won more Dixie Series games than any other pitcher around. He lasted, a couple of seasons with Detroit and came back down. And then he became a Texas League umpire. They had spitballs, which, you couldn't have after 1920. Oh, well, unless you were grandfathered in the majors, but in the minor leagues, you could have it.
Oh, into the 40s, they were still spitting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Burley Grimes was the last guy. He can still do it. But for the Dixie series, you had to cut down your roster.
No, but I'm saying in the Texas League, and they were still allowing spinners to play into the 40s.
They did, and you had to manage your rotation because the Southern Association didn't allow it. So when you played in the Southern Association stadium, you couldn't use your spitball. But if you played in the Texas League, you play 2 games here, 2 games there. Playing in the Texas League stadium, you can use your spitball.
Did they, the spitballers, if you threw a spitball, did you get grandfathered in? Or did you have to stop
In
throwing?
the majors, you did.
Okay, that's what I'm.
I think
In
there
the
were like
majors,
8,
they
there were like 18 players, I think they got
Yeah.
grandfathered in, I think.
something like that.
Kirby, who was the Houston Bucks, Fort Worth? Who did Dallas? Give me a
Hank Greenberg came out of the Beaumont Explorer, 1933.
Freeport was in.
Freeport was in and out, back and forth with the Southern Association and Texas League. You had
El Paso.
Wichita City, Wichita,
Falls.
Oklahoma City, San Antonio,
Amarillo, maybe, or
on and off,
El Paso.
Yeah.
No, they weren't.
not well. At the end of when the Southern Association folded, you had, and at the same time, the Texas League split off. They were both AA, and Texas League should have been a AAA. And so they applied, and 3 teams went up to AAA. And so that's when some of the smaller, Corpus Christi and some of the others came up into Texas League.
Texarkana was in this.
I don't think so. Not in the Texas League.
Okay, what about Lubbock? That's way the hell out there.
I don't believe.
All right. But Houston, and what about Galveston?
Yeah, Galveston Giants.
You did a bigger deal on this world this postseason. And a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, well, this is an excerpt from one of the books I'm working on now, and McFarland and a bunch of other people said, they don't think they have much interest in minor league baseball and things like that, but so I'll probably self-publish the thing one out
Yeah.
because they have enough characters come out of it. Dizzy Dean played for Houston, and when they went into the Dixie series against Birmingham,
Excuse me, you got an extra?
Yeah. everybody was saying, "Oh, Dizzy Dean's gonna, mow him down." He only got 5 strikeouts in 3 games out of the whole thing. It was an old fellow
Right.
from Birmingham by the name of Ray Caldwell, who outpitched him.
Dizzy was with Houston
He was Houston.
and his brother too.
Yeah, brother only won 1 game while he was at Houston, but Jimmy Pearsall played for Birmingham before he went. Well, he was crazy then, but he went crazier later. Hank Greenberg, like I told you, Hank Greenberg did his rookie year in Beaumont and then went straight up to Detroit.
The rest is history.
Yeah, well, he was.
I think he was a Tiger at 34 34.
Yeah, he was 33 was his
33
rookie year, and then he went straight up to Detroit.
35, I think he broke his ankles in the World Series, sliding. But then all the way to, I guess, 42, he jumped into the war.
Yeah. He was one of the first in the list.
And then hit a grand slam in 45 to clinch the
But
pennant.
he made it back a lot faster than a lot of the other fellows who came back from the war. You know, of course,
Well, he enlisted before Pearl Harbor even.
well, but
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
But I'm talking about the guys, not the guys who enlisted and then played baseball for war bond rallies. I'm talking about guys like Bob Feller actually crossed the equator 13 times on the USS Alabama running a gun crew before some admiral figured out that he was on his boat and pulled him off. I mean, there were guys who actually served and
Yogi Berra.
well, yeah.
Warren Spahn.
Yogi was on a landing boat in the second wave. And the pilot of the boat said, Yogi, if the guys don't get off, when I drop the gate, the guys don't get off, shoot them. Yogi said, aren't they on our team?
That'd be a good presentation.
Yeah.
All the different heroes, what they did in the war, did they play baseball?
Well, you know, I did a presentation at the World War II for when baseball went to war. I had the opening day panel. I was a moderator for the opening day panel, and they had Lou Greasy, who was a pitcher for the Cardinals, who told the spookiest story I've ever heard.
Browns, I thought. He was American League, wasn't he?
No, Cardinals. And then after that, well, when he came back, he may have, but I thought he came back with the Cardinals, and then he ran all the American Legion tournaments forever and ever and ever. But he got shot up, and his knee and whatnot is a bunch of shrapnel. And they put him through triage, they stabilized him and stuck him off on the side and said, well, you know, we're gonna have to take his leg, but he's stable. And he said this curly blonde haired nurse came up to him and said, would you mind if I look at your wound? And he was like, yeah, okay. Lifts the sheet, looks at it, says, okay, when the doctors come back, I want you to tell them to do this, and I'm shortening it. Do this, and do this. And I repeated back to him, he says, yes, ma'am, do this, and do this. I said, okay. So when the doctors come back, take him to the operating room to amputate his leg, he says, doctor, the nurse says you should do this, and do this, and do this. He said, who told you that? The nurse. He said, look at him and go, what did it? Do this, and this. He says, yeah, we do that, we'd probably save a leg. Who told you that? Blonde haired curly nurse. And they go, there's no blonde haired curly nurse in this unit.
I've forgotten that
Who
story.
the hell it was?
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on. I had a woman from the World War, the CIA museum, and everybody's like, what's she doing? I said, that was Mo Berg.
Yeah, she passed out copies of Mo Berg's application.
Yeah, she did, yeah.
And I got to one of my favorite things. He says, well, he said, well, he could speak 7 languages. I said, yeah, he couldn't hit any of them.
Yeah, that's right.
And they all said, well, that was good. And I was like, I wasn't. That was somebody, I can't remember. Somebody else used that about different.
Well, wait,
Lou Grissy, I remember had the crutches with the arm piece.
Yeah. And he came back and pitched with his injury.
Yeah.
He pitched 10 games and then he retired. And
He
then Bob Feller,
he was like his mid-80s and still went to the VA hospital regularly to visit.
Bob Feller came and I gave him a copy of the first article I ever wrote was how the Pelicans hid Bob Feller in New Orleans. And I had a picture of him taking his.
Was that something to do with the Roosevelt?
He was taking his final exams in the blue room at the Roosevelt. You could see the bandstand in the back. And his tutor from Warren Easton was, and he's in a coat and tie taking his thing. And I gave him a copy of the picture and a copy of the article. He stuck it under his thing. He said, we don't talk about that. I'm like, aren't you in the Hall of Fame? I think you're pretty safe.
Yeah,
right. You know? He was a character. But I did another talk on the Jackie Robinson Day that they had one for that. And we showed the film about when he was in the military, he wouldn't sit in the back of the bus. And the MPs arrested him and his wife, and they had a whole to do about that.
He was completely in the right from start to finish.
Well, absolutely.
Let me get your opinion on this. Berg was sent to Japan He went on top of buildings, took pictures.
Well, he went to go visit a friend of his in the hospital. The hospital had a rooftop access. And, you know, they had told Moses, here's this camera. Now, it wasn't a Brownie, it was a Hasselblad. Okay, so it's not a tourist camera. It's,
Now, what year was this?
I don't remember.
35,
It was
36?
before the war, because they were still
Was-
doing goodwill tours of
I
baseball.
know.
Was this during one of those tours, in fact?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay.
he went to go visit,
The book Bonsai Babe
he
Ruth.
went to go visit a buddy of his in the hospital. Snuck up the stairway to the roof and took pictures of the skyline, so you could say, well, here's where the power grid is, here's where the oil.
Okay, okay, somebody in Washington wants to know all this. They must have known a war was coming.
Sure they knew. Oh, yeah.
1935 or
They paid,
Yeah.
they paid the
There were things going on in Asia at the time.
Japan,
were they violating the Chinese at this point?
no. Japan had contracted with a Scottish boatyard to build aircraft carrier hulls. And the United States showed them, and they paid them to how to put it off center. So that when they didn't launch it, they just said, okay, here's your hull, and they ship it back, and when they launch it, they put the there, and when they launch it, the whole thing
Tilt it
capsized.
Mm.
I mean, there were like dirty tricks going back and forth all over.
No, but I mean, you got a spot, a guy like Moberg taking pictures. And I'm thinking, somebody knew that these Japanese were gonna do something to the Chinese, which they did, you know.
Well, they knew it.
Manchurian.
You knew the Germans were gonna do what they did. But you had England was telling you, we're gonna appease everybody, they're not gonna, Hitler won't do that, he won't do that.
Hitler was doing that in 1933.
Yeah.
So, how many times did New Orleans play in the Dixie series? About,
During this time period,
yeah.
they played in 23, 24, and 26.
that's all when Larry
And then,
Gilbert was,
and they didn't win any of those. In the 33 and 34, they won.
that's
And
when
then that was the end of
Larry Gilbert was the
And Larry
manager.
Gilbert won 4 more with Nashville.
1923, 24, 26.
Yeah,
They lost it in the series.
they lost.
New Orleans
They
Pelicans.
lost to the Dallas Steers. They lost to Wichita.
I ran across a,
The Wichita Spudders.
And what years,
Wichita Falls.
Yeah,
which years were they successful?
33 and 34.
I ran across a picture. It was when New Orleans was playing the Dixie series. I forget which year. It had a thing on the side of a building downtown that had a field with the lights where the players would have been, and they were actually,
Oh, yeah.
as the game was being played, they
did
were
that at-
changing, showing
was
through a
the-
series of lights.
Oh, the
A
recreation.
visual,
That
yeah,
was the state's item. It used to be, you know where 650 Fortress is now? Right by
yeah,
Lafayette
yeah,
Square?
yeah. That's
Yeah.
where it was.
That's where the state's was. That's my grandfather worked at the states,
Okay.
and that's who.
You don't remember that?
No,
Old red brick building. My
Yeah.
dad worked there.
Yeah, well, yeah. He used to take me, I'd see you dad at Curly's all the time. Cause my
They had a
grandfather.
ring. Didn't they have a ring?
Yeah, they had a ring in the back, boxing ring in the back. And my grandfather used to, you know, my father and mother would, dad was a doctor, so when they got time off, they farmed the kids out to the grandparents. They took the 2 oldest ones with one set, and I was a baby, and my grandmother would try to entertain me on a Friday after school. But, you know, I didn't care about the flowers or any of that. So my grandfather came home, that's when the weekend started, right? So you watch the Gillette Friday night fights. And I'd sit at the bottom of his chair, lean against the back of his chair, and it would probably be child endangerment, the amount of cigar smoke that I secondhand, you know, because he would go through, you know, cigar after cigar. Watch the Gillette Friday night fights. He was a newspaper man, and he did advertising. So he'd go to all the chain stores and pick up their ad copy. So you go to McKenzie's, Schwegman's, and all the different, pick up the ad copy for the week. And he knew every detail guy, every stock boy, everybody in the whole place. Then you'd watch, you know, baseball, game, CBS game of the week was on. That was mostly the Yankees, right? Because CBS owned the Yankees. And then you had the football games
Busy
on
Dean and
Sunday.
Pee Wee Reeves.
Yeah, Busy Dean, Pee Wee Reeves. He done slud in the third, standing up.
Then one time they brought games on Saturday and Sunday. That didn't last that long.
Not that long. Well, you had some cities that still had Sunday blue laws. You know. Strange, but then Curly's was right where the Federal Reserve Bank is now. Curly was right on that corner,
That's
on St. Charles and Poyers,
yes, but they had another Curly's. There was a neutral corner and a cozy corner.
cozy corner.
You don't remember the other one, I think where the federal court is,
Yeah,
but the other one was where the.
with the Federal Reserve Bank on one and then back towards the river, you had code. You remember the Howard Johnson shooting up, you know,
Yeah,
they took all the cops and firemen that they shot, they took them to Curly's neutral corner, that's where they treated them. That was the closest place they could get.
you remember the Choctaw Club?
Yeah, well, that was back on the other side of where.
Lafayette Square,
Lafayette
Galleria
Square.
Hall, right?
Yeah, well, it used to be a street that ran through it. Okay. You had what's now North and South May Street.
Yeah.
Okay, and then in the middle of the block, there used to be a
There was
street.
a street cut through
Yeah.
Lafayette Square,
Yeah,
Lafayette Street.
not through Lafayette Square, but from Poydras to Lafayette Square and then from Lafayette Square to Julia.
The post office there now, I think.
Yeah, after where they were federal building, post office.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the little alley that's on the side of that behind the Lafayette Hotel. That's the last remnant of the little cut of the street. It's just, but it was a whole street at one point.
There's a federal building on South Street,
That was ABF federal bill.
but that wasn't there when the
No,
street.
there were five, well, there used to be the Presbyterian Church was there. There was a house on the corner, a campus,
Fighters can-
Presbyterian Church. And a
Make
couple
your own
other
thing,
things.
it's basically.
Nowadays,
like-
with the US
the reason I'm asking is
Circuit,
'cause
Well, it used to be St. Patrick's
One of my,
Hall.
if not my favorite writers.
And that was the original library. Well, actually, it was the original
so,
Odd Fellows.
You know, you
Hall.
like whatever it costs.
They
a month
built
or
it,
whatever
and
it costs.
They built it, it was a
So,
post
look,
office.
I don't
Well, it was post
know,
office, library,
Can I send you like an article that's?
they had the Henderson trial,
Talk about it.
you know, with the 11
Probably not.
Italian prisoners.
I-
It was the top, the trial was in that building.
You can send it,
St. Patrick's.
but I
Hall.
probably couldn't, if you send the link.
And then they tore that down in
That's what
1911. And
Built the post office.
Built the John Martin Whitney. And at that point in time, it was the post office until they built the one on Loyola.
It's just beautiful. I mean,
It
this
was,
particular- he's been doing
The
some-
library until they built the one where KV Plaza was down.
Share a little bit about.
That wasn't, it was the main library,
It's got,
where John Minor was.
video
there.
embedded
And then
Then they built the.
during
police
that, year,
circle.
it was
Yeah,
the big
yeah.
down at 35. They had classes.
All right, you wanna got it?
I just had one little thing I wanted to talk to y'all about, and I didn't get a chance to send it to you because it just came, this article just came out a couple days ago, and it's on that website Substack, where it's basically like kind of it's all genres, any kind of thing you want to write about, but essentially, you know, you create your own, you know, derbysinclair.substack.com, and you say that it's either free to read it or it costs $3 a month or $10 a month or whatever it is, and people subscribe. And like this writer that I really love had not been writing for a couple of years. He'd worked for Baseball Prospectus, and then he did and then he was at ESPN, and when ESPN did all the layoffs a few years ago, he stopped. So he just came back, so I didn't know how to get the article to be able to share it. I wasn't sure about the ethics of sharing an article behind a paywall, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, he did this article about the pitch clock. And I'm just speak for myself. I think it's fantastic. I get it, it's a little quick, but just the pace of the games and everything, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I think it's so great.
Wait, what, where do I go?
The one that I'm talking about is, let me make sure let me tell you, I believe it's pebblehunting.subs. Hang on, let me tell you, let me make sure I tell it to you at the end, right? I don't want to mess it up. But essentially, this is an article. It's a fun article. This dude basically, gets really, really incredible information and detail and tells it to you in a way that it's like, I mean, just so, his personality comes through, easy to understand, in depth, it's not technical, even though the analysis might, like, so this dude watches a game from 2023, he watches a game from 1983, and he compares those 2 years because the average time of game is the same now. Wow, 1983 and 2023. And then he also, the oldest game he can find a complete radio broadcast of is 1936. So he goes to that game and he listens to the whole game on the radio, and he gets his charts out and he graphs the time in between every pitch, every in between every batter. He charts all the times. So in 2000, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
And so he basically just goes in and talks about how the pace of play is actually really similar to 1936 in terms of like the time between the innings and everything and the pitches. But they threw way less pitches back then because everybody swung at the first pitch. There was like way shorter. That's why the games were so short then. But the pace between is like similar now. And now, if you go to the 83 game and you watch the 1983 game, it feels slow because the time between everything is much longer than it is now. But it just made the same amount of time because they didn't have as they didn't have it. They, you know, it was stretched out by the players doing the stuff that they do. They're starting to stretch things out. The reason they put the pitch clock in.
Yeah, but also,
And in the 30s, that what they had a pitch clock, it was called the sun.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly.
but there were less commercials back in the.
No, less commercials. Exactly.
Less commercial time between innings.
Yeah. Trying to see. I took a few notes while I was talking about it.
Hang on just a minute.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, are you trying to get on this Zoom call? Another, looks like another group joined. But it's like, I think maybe they're after us and then we overlap time. Keep
Oh,
going.
is it the same thing?
They've gone, yeah. So
Well, anyways, I just thought it was a really cool way of thinking about it. And he was basically being like, it's just like 1983, except for that it's nothing like 1983. And it's actually a lot like 1936. You know, just like the average time between batters in 2023 and 1936 is only about 5 seconds difference, 46 seconds or so. Whereas like in the 80s, it was over 50. So like they basically kind of taken the time of the pace of the game back almost 100 years. But the length, I don't think they can really shorten it anymore because there's so many more pitches.
Well, let me ask you something about the pitching. All right. Let's say I'm the first batter. I get a 2-2 count, I pop up to the shortstop. All right, I drop down to first and I'm retired. I head back to the, when does that clock begin?
The 30-second clock,
Yeah, for the next batter.
I think when the pitcher gets the ball,
I think when a pitcher gets the ball, yeah.
I think when the pitcher gets the ball. Like you gotta, everybody in the dugout has to.
Yeah.
Like the dude from the Mets, the manager, Buck Showalter, he's bringing his bat boys on the road now. Because everything has to go so quick. Like you can't, the bat boy can't take their time. I'm pretty sure to answer your question, it's when the pitcher gets the ball, but those rules are gonna take a couple years for me to really.
Speaking of